Step Up, Level 3 by Philippa Bowen and Dennis Delaney. Published and copyright Oxford University Press, 2018. Exam Trainer.
Reading Comprehension. Introduction.
Quebec, Canada's New France.
Before the 16th century, the people who lived in Canada were Native Americans, and in the north, the Inuit. But in the 17th century, France took Canada as a colony and called it New France. Britain also wanted North America as a colony, and it fought the French for possession of the area for many years. In the end, Britain won control of most of the USA and Canada. However, many French people remained in Canada, especially in Quebec, the country's largest province. Although it is situated in North America, the province of Quebec and its capital city, Quebec City, still have a French culture today. Visitors to Quebec can find historic European-style architecture, the French language, and French cuisine there. The 1960s and 70s were years of great change for Quebec. Between 1963 and 1970, the Front de Libération de Québec, a terrorist group, used bomb attacks and kidnapping to protest for independence from Canada. In 1974, French became the official language of Quebec. Today, TV, radio, and many newspapers are in French, and only about half of the population can speak English. Quebec is still a part of Canada, and not an independent state, but there are many people in the province who would like independence from Canada. In referendums in 1980 and 1995, the people of Quebec voted to stay a part of Canada. But in 1995, the result of the vote was very close. In fact, 49.4% of the voters wanted independence, and 50.6% wanted to stay with Canada. The debate about independence for Quebec continues today.
Reading Comprehension. 1.
Light. What is light?
Light is a form of energy. It is made of small particles called photons. Light travels in waves. All natural light on Earth comes from the sun. The speed of the sun's light is 300,000 kilometers per second, so it takes about 8 minutes for the light to reach the Earth.
Reflection.
If there is no light, we can't see anything. We can only see things when light reflects off them into our eyes. Light reflects off every surface that it meets. Sometimes we can see this reflection clearly, for example in a shiny surface, like a mirror.
Refraction.
Light travels at different speeds through different materials. It moves quickly through air, but if the material is dense, for example water, it moves slowly. When light passes from one material to a different material, the light waves can bend. This is called refraction. You can see refraction if you put a pencil into a glass of water. Under the water, the pencil appears to bend.
Colour.
The light from the sun is called white light, but it is made of many different colours, called the spectrum. The different colours in the spectrum travel at different wavelengths. The longest wavelength is red, and the shortest is violet. Different things appear to be different colours because they reflect some colours and absorb others. For example, a banana reflects yellow light waves and absorbs all the other colours. Only the yellow waves reach our eyes. We can separate the different colours of the spectrum if we shine white light through a prism, a triangular piece of glass. Rainbows are formed in the same way. When it is sunny and rainy at the same time, the raindrops function like little prisms and create a rainbow.
Reading comprehension. 2.
The British in India.
In the 19th century, Britain had an empire that was bigger than any other in history. Britain controlled about 25% of all the land in the world because its colonies included some of the largest countries like Australia, Canada, and India. Britain's occupation of India began in the 17th century. The East India Company, a group of British traders, controlled all the trade between Britain and India at that time. People from the East India Company moved to India with their families and built communities there. Some Indian people were angry with these British people and didn't want them there. The British were making money from Indian products, tea, cotton and silk, and becoming rich. But Indian people had to pay taxes to them. The East India Company formed a private army, which grew to about 200,000 men. At first, the army's function was to defend the British communities, but then they began to take land from local Indian leaders. By the middle of the 19th century, the East India Company controlled a large part of India. Some local Indians joined the East India Company's army, but in 1857 there was a great rebellion by the Indian soldiers. The British government sent extra soldiers to help the East India Company. The British and the Indians fought over the city of Delhi for a year. The British Army won the battle, and in 1858, India officially became a British colony. Britain ruled India until 1947. This period is known as the British Raj, from a word meaning rule in the Hindi language. Trade with India, particularly in the cotton industry, made lots of money for Britain, and the British people in India enjoyed a privileged lifestyle. However, during the Raj period, the British also tried to improve life for everyone in the country. British engineers built railways, roads and canals there. Indians adopted the British systems of government, education and law, and English became the official language.
Reading comprehension. 3.
South Africa.
Today, South Africa is called a rainbow nation because people of African, Asian, and European origin all live there together. About 80% of the population is black, and 20% is Asian, mixed race, or white. They speak English, Afrikaans, a language similar to Dutch, and many different African languages. At different times in its history, South Africa has been both a Dutch and a British colony. When it was a part of the British Empire, South Africa was governed by its white population. This system continued after the country became independent from Britain in 1934. White South Africans were richer and had better jobs than the black population, who could not vote in elections. In 1948, the government created a system that legally separated white people and black people. It was called Apartheid. Black and white people had to live separately and could not get married or use the same transport, schools, libraries, or other public buildings. The apartheid system was a form of racial discrimination, but it continued until 1994. Nelson Mandela was born in South Africa in 1918. He studied law at university and he became a lawyer in Johannesburg, helping poor black people with their legal problems. In 1944, he joined the African National Congress, ANC, a protest movement that wanted black South Africans to have the same rights as the white people. In 1960, the government banned the ANC. Mandela criticized the government and he organized protests. In 1962, at the age of 46, he was arrested, and in 1964, he was sent to prison on Robben Island for life. Conditions at the prison were very hard. Prisoners had to do hard physical work, and there were no books or radios. In the 1960s, other countries began to oppose the apartheid system in South Africa. They organized demonstrations. They refused to buy South African products, and sports teams refused to play there. In the 1980s, the South African government finally began to make changes. The new president, F.W. de Klerk, started to free political prisoners, and he removed the ban on protest movements. In 1990, after 27 years, Mandela was finally released from prison. In the 1994 elections, black South Africans could vote for the first time. They chose Nelson Mandela as their country's first black president. Mandela didn't want revenge for the years of apartheid and injustice. He asked all South Africans to work together in peace. He was honoured around the world, and in 1993, he shared the Nobel Peace Prize with de Klerk. Nelson Mandela died in 2013, aged 95. Today, he is an inspiration to people all around the world for his courage and forgiveness.
Reading comprehension. 4.
Art Nouveau.
Art Nouveau, which in French means new art, was a popular artistic style in many European countries between about 1890 and 1910. It was a reaction against the Industrial Revolution and modern city life. Art Nouveau was inspired by nature. Its artists used organic curved lines and bright colours. They wanted their work to live and grow, like a living thing. Art Nouveau objects and patterns often use the forms of leaves, flowers, flames and shells. Art Nouveau artists created paintings, posters and sculptures, and also everyday objects. For example, their work included furniture, jewellery, household objects like lamps and mirrors, and fabrics. The Art Nouveau style was also used when architects designed buildings. Two famous architects of this style were Antoni Gaudí from Barcelona and Hector Guimard from Paris. Gaudí designed lots of Art Nouveau buildings, including La Casa Mila, which was finished in 1910. Guimard designed the entrances to lots of the metro stations in Paris. They are now a symbol of the city and one of the best-known Art Nouveau works in Europe. In the USA, Louis Comfort Tiffany became famous for his Art Nouveau glass and ceramic works, especially for the famous Tiffany glass lamp. He also designed beautiful jewellery for his father's famous jewellery company, including brooches and necklaces in the form of animals, insects and flowers. In Britain, another company that produced commercial Art Nouveau products was Liberty in London. Today, Liberty is a department store which still sells beautiful fabrics and household objects. In the 1890s, its owner, Arthur Liberty, commissioned new Art Nouveau patterns for the store's fabrics. Liberty print patterns are still famous and popular all over the world today. Britain's most famous Art Nouveau designer is Charles Rennie Mackintosh from Scotland. Mackintosh studied at the Glasgow School of Art, one of the best art academies in Europe at the time. He was an artist, an architect, and a designer. Mackintosh designed houses, a new building for the Glasgow School of Art, and a famous tea room in Glasgow city centre that you can still visit today. Art Nouveau is one of the most popular styles in the history of art and was revived many times during the 20th century.
Reading comprehension. 5.
The Great British Quiz.
Every year, more than 200,000 immigrants to the UK are given British citizenship. Immigrants to the UK don't have to become British citizens, but each year many of them decide to do it. You can apply for British citizenship if you are over 18, if you have lived legally in the UK for 5 years, and if you are of good character, which means that you haven't got a criminal record. At a special ceremony, you have to make an official promise to respect the values and laws of the UK. A large percentage of these new British citizens come from India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, which were all once part of the old British colony of India. Another large proportion come from the Philippines, which was an American colony. You have to pass 2 tests if you want to become a British citizen. First, you need to have a good level of English. If you are from countries where English is the first language, like the Republic of Ireland, Australia or Jamaica, you don't need to prove your ability in English. But people from other countries need a qualification in the English language, like one of the Cambridge or Trinity exams. Secondly, you need to pass the Life in the UK test. It's a general knowledge quiz about life in the UK. The Life in the UK test asks questions about British history, traditions and customs. Its topics include government, the monarchy, everyday life and festivals. There are 24 multiple-choice questions in the test, and you have to answer 75% of the questions correctly. When the Life in the UK test was introduced in 2005, it caused lots of amusement. British people thought that it was very difficult, especially the questions on history and politics. The test asks questions like, which Roman emperor invaded Britain in AD 43, and how many people are there in the Scottish Parliament? Some of the information that you have to know is quite funny, like the age of Big Ben or the height of the London Eye. Immigrants to the UK can do courses and study for the test, but lots of British people wouldn't be able to answer the questions.
Reading comprehension. 6.
Florida, the Sunshine State.
Most of the state of Florida, in the USA, is a long peninsula in the Atlantic Ocean. It has more than 2,000 kilometres of coastline. The state capital of Florida is Tallahassee, a small city with only about 200,000 inhabitants. The biggest city, with more than 800,000 inhabitants, is Jacksonville, but the most famous city in Florida is Miami, with its tropical climate and its great beaches. Florida is the warmest of all the US states. The average daily temperature, even in winter, is about 20 degrees Celsius, and it is often sunny. For this reason, Florida is called the Sunshine State. Many Americans have got winter holiday homes in Florida, or they move there when they retire. But Florida's geography and climate can cause serious problems for its residents. The long coastline regularly attracts hurricanes. They strike the coast of Florida every year during the hurricane season, which is from June to November. Today, many houses in Florida are built of special materials to protect them from hurricanes. Florida is a popular holiday destination for Americans and also for people from other countries. The state has many world-famous tourist attractions, and tourism is its biggest industry. The city of Orlando is home to famous theme parks like Walt Disney World, SeaWorld, and Universal Studios, which includes the wizarding world of Harry Potter. At NASA's Kennedy Space Center, visitors can see real rockets and launch pads from the US space program. They can also meet real astronauts and take a virtual journey to the moon. For a quieter holiday, tourists can visit the Everglades National Park, an enormous nature reserve of swamps and wetlands. The Everglades are home to many rare and endangered animal species. If visitors are lucky, they might see tree frogs, alligators, crocodiles, or the Florida panther.
Reading comprehension. 7.
The Emerald Isle. 1.
The island of Ireland is to the west of Great Britain. It is famous for its green landscape, which gives the country its nickname, the Emerald Isle. The island is divided into two countries. Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but the south is an independent country called the Republic of Ireland.
2.
The ancient people of Ireland were the Celts, and there is a Celtic influence on Irish culture. Some of the population can still speak the ancient Irish language, Gaelic. Traditional Irish music is played on fiddles, and Irish dancing is fast and skillful. The Irish dance show Riverdance has become famous all over the world. Storytelling and poetry are an important part of Celtic culture. Ireland has a long literary tradition and has produced many famous writers. Oscar Wilde, 1854 to 1900, wrote poetry and plays and was famous for his witticisms. James Joyce, 1882 to 1941, changed literature forever with his modern psychological writing style.
3.
Ireland has had a difficult history. In 1541, Henry VIII took control of the country and made it an English colony. English Protestants moved to Ireland and took land from the local Catholic population. Trouble began between the two different groups of people and continued for centuries.
4.
At the start of the 20th century, a new group called the Irish Republican Army, the IRA, was founded in Ireland. The IRA wanted independence from Britain, and they decided to use violent methods. In 1916, there was a large rebellion in Dublin. the British government sent more than 5,000 British soldiers to fight the Irish rebels. About 450 people were killed during the rebellion, which is now known as the Easter Rising.
5.
The violence between the IRA and the British Army continued through the 20th century. In 1922, the Republic of Ireland was given independence from Britain, and the island was divided into two different countries. The North, which had a large Protestant population, remained British. British soldiers stayed in Northern Ireland to keep the peace between Protestants and Catholics there. The IRA didn't want any British soldiers in Ireland, and they wanted Ireland to be united again. In the 1960s, 70s and 80s, there were terrorist bomb attacks by the IRA in Northern Ireland and in England.
6.
Peace came to Northern Ireland in the 1990s. In 1994, the IRA agreed to a ceasefire, and in 1998, the Good Friday Agreement gave Northern Ireland its own parliament. A new period of peace and stability began.
Reading comprehension. 8.
Sport in Australia. 1.
Australia's climate is warm and sunny. Many Australians spend a lot of their time in the open air, and sport is very popular. Australia's beautiful beaches mean that lots of people do water sports. Swimming is Australia's most successful Olympic sport, and the beaches on Australia's coastline are popular with surfers from all over the world. The city of Cairns, in the northeast of Australia, near the Great Barrier Reef, is an important centre for scuba diving.
2.
Two of the most popular sports in Australia are rugby and cricket. Australia has world-class teams in these sports. The Australian national rugby union team is called the Wallabies. They play in the traditional Australian sports colours of green and gold. Rugby and cricket both originated in England. These sports were taken to Australia by British migrants in the 19th century. Australia was a British colony from the 18th to the 20th century and still has strong links to Britain today.
3.
England and Australia are traditional rivals at cricket. In 1882, the Australian team beat the English team at home in England for the first time. A British newspaper, the Sporting Times, published an obituary of cricket as a joke. It said that English cricket was dead and cremated, and that its ashes were now in Australia. The next year, the English team went to Australia to try to win back the ashes. This time, they burnt some cricket equipment, and the ashes were put into a small trophy. Today, the two teams still regularly compete for the Ashes trophy.
4.
Football is popular in Australia. Australians enjoy classic football, but they also have their own version of the game. It's officially called Australian Rules Football, but people normally call it Aussie Rules. Aussie Rules is similar to rugby and American football, but there are several differences too. There are 18 players in each team, with very tall goalposts at each end of the pitch. Players can tackle other players as they hit, kick and carry the ball. Aussie Rules is now starting to become popular in other countries, like Japan and New Zealand.
Reading comprehension. 9.
The English Romantics in Italy. 1.
The Romantic movement in European art and literature began at the time of the French Revolution in 1789. It was a great period of rebellion and change. Romanticism involved writers, artists, and composers. They found inspiration in nature and believed that emotions were more important than intelligence. The younger Romantics also wanted to fight for social and political freedom.
2.
In Britain, the best-known writers of the Romantic movement were a group of English poets. Some of the most famous ones had revolutionary ideas and unconventional private lives. They found life in Britain oppressive and decided to go travelling in Europe, where they could have more freedom.
3.
One of these English Romantic poets, Percy Bysshe Shelley, was born in 1792. He had to leave Oxford University because he was an atheist, and Oxford was a very traditional university. In 1816, he left Britain for Europe with Mary Godwin, the intellectual daughter of a friend. They spent the summer of 1816 at Lake Geneva with another Romantic poet, George Byron. Byron was born in 1788, and he was an English lord. He was already a famous poet in Britain, but he wanted to leave the country because of scandals about his unhappy marriage and because of his money problems.
4.
At Lake Geneva, Shelley and Byron wrote poetry, and Mary also began to write one of the most famous books of the period, Frankenstein. After the summer, Shelley and Mary returned to England, where they got married, and Byron left Lake Geneva for Italy. Italy was very popular with the Romantics because of its landscape, its architecture, and its links to Roman civilization. In 1818, the Shelleys joined Byron in Italy.
5.
Life was not happy for the Shelleys. Between 1818 and 1822, 2 of their children died as babies, and Mary was often ill. In 1821, their friend John Keats, another famous English Romantic poet, died in Rome at the age of only 25. Then in 1822, while the Shelleys were living in Lerici in Liguria, Percy Shelley drowned in a tragic boat accident.
6.
During his time in Italy, Byron visited all of the famous cities and lived in Venice, Ravenna, Pisa, and Genoa. He wrote some of his most famous poems in Italy, including the long poem Don Juan. Byron became a famous celebrity for his poetry and for his love life.
7.
In 1823, Byron left Italy to fight with the Greeks for their independence from the Turkish Empire. He died in Greece in 1824. Byron's body was brought back to England, but the tombs of Keats and Shelley are in the Protestant cemetery in Rome.